Important update about YouTube playlists. Hey everyone. We've received many messages asking why our YouTube playlists aren't showing up. Do we create YouTube playlists? Yes, we absolutely do. So why can't you see them? Honestly, we're not sure. We've been in contact with YouTube support for several months now, but we still haven't received a clear answer or solution. After much discussion, our team has decided to take matters into our own hands. We believe the issue might be related to the number of playlists we've created on a single channel, possibly too many. Our solution? We're launching 2 additional YouTube channels, giving us a total of 3. This way, we can organize our audiobooks better and avoid the playlist visibility issue in the future. This change only affects our YouTube audience. If you're a patron supporter, you can still access all our audiobooks by visiting the collection menu on Patreon. Thanks so much for your time and continued support. Happy listening. Chapter 61, Hidden Agendas. After being scolded, Akimoto didn't get angry. Instead, he scratched his head sheepishly and watched as Ryoko slipped her hand into her blouse, fumbling around her undergarments before pulling out a small metal device. Akimoto's gaze locked on her trembling chest, his Adam's apple bobbing as he gulped. You're slow in most things, but your reaction speed at times like this isn't bad. Ryoko lazily shot him a glance and tidied her clothes. Haha. Akimoto laughed awkwardly, quickly looking away. His eyes instead focused on the thin metal tracker in her hand, excitement lighting up his face as he rubbed his hands together and grinned ingratiatingly. You're incredible, boss. That kid only checked us physically, he didn't know we installed a tracker on the car. No matter where he goes, we can find him. Hey, let him run for now. Once we catch up, I'll show him who he's dealing with. Akimoto smugly shook his chubby cheeks, but his satisfaction quickly vanished when Ryoko's next move startled him. She swiftly disabled the tracker. Boss, what are you doing? If you destroy the receiver, how are we supposed to track him? Akimoto exclaimed, utterly confused. Without even looking up, Ryoko stuffed the broken receiver into the glove compartment. Who said we were going to chase him? Huh? Don't act so shocked. He's already suspicious of us. If we chase him, how would we explain another coincidence? Ryoko said flatly. But our weapons are still in our car. Akimoto pouted stubbornly. He can't win against 2 M4 carbines, right? There's no need to escalate this. Our mission is to monitor him, not capture him. Ryoko quietly calculated. According to intel, that kid was injected with the first-generation antibody. The defects are massive. Even if he survived the initial procedure, he will eventually die. The first-gen antibody trials are already considered failures. So how do we report back? Akimoto scratched his head, still unsure. Boss, I'll follow whatever you say. Ryoko's eyes flickered with a rare hint of approval. This new partner was a bit dim but self-aware. He knew his place. He might not be much help in strategy, but at least he wouldn't drag her down. Though if Akimoto knew what Ryoko really thought, he definitely wouldn't agree. When we report, we'll say the target drove into a zombie horde and we lost him. But we left a tracker in the car, and the rest is out of our hands. Won't HQ push back? Akimoto was still worried. Do you think this is the old days? Ryoko's tone turned cold. They won't push back. They'll probably commend us and give us a few days off. From what I know, a new round of antibody trials is about to begin, and they'll soon be desperate for manpower. Don't underestimate your value. Besides, I have a really bad feeling. Things might already be spiraling out of control. Ryoko stared blankly at Akimoto. Just remember, in future missions, your #1 priority is to stay alive. Everything else comes second. The timing might have been strange, but Akimoto quickly nodded. Got it, boss. Honestly, from the start, he thought the guys issuing orders from their underground bunker were useless. In his mind, only people like Ryoko smart and strong deserve to be in charge. And he himself, with his second-best combat skills, should naturally be next in line. But now, both of the most capable people were taking orders from others. That told him the leadership structure had long been rotten. Akimoto grinned. If it ever gets too bad, I'm out. As long as I can follow you, I'm good. The sound of their departing vehicle had attracted nearby zombies. Just around the corner, a dozen zombies appeared in their view, some missing limbs, some with intestines and bones exposed. Enough flattery, get us out of here. Ryoko frowned slightly, annoyed by his theatrics, though somewhere inside, she appreciated it. The guy might be a headache at times, but he was surprisingly reliable when it mattered. That kid though, his killing intent really was something else. Ryoko relaxed into her seat, replaying the moment Sosuke Kitahara pointed a gun at her. Back then, her entire body had tensed. Her instincts screamed that if she so much as twitched, he would have pulled the trigger without hesitation. But that was all. Ryoko's lips curved faintly. Just like Akimoto, Sosuke had strength but lacked professional training. He missed subtle details. He probably still didn't know his home was already under surveillance. Young. What are you doing? Hurry up and drive. Ryoko snapped, frowning at Akimoto, who was still fumbling with the keys. The key won't fit. Akimoto was frantically trying each key in turn, but none worked. A horde of zombies was now charging at them, close enough that he could see their rotting, yellowed teeth. More zombies were steadily pouring around the corner. If they got surrounded, they were dead. Akimoto felt sheer panic, his bladder nearly giving out as he desperately jammed keys into the ignition. Stop. That brat tricked us. The key doesn't fit. Ryoko's face darkened as she flung open the car door. Move. Hurry. Hey, Sosuke, I think you have a key under your seat. In the speeding black sedan, Utaha sat up in the passenger seat and fished out a shiny key from beneath Sosuke Kitahara. The sunlight gleamed off its surface. It was unmistakably the key to the Suzuki MPV. You did that on purpose? Utaha realized instantly. They aren't ordinary people. I don't know why they're hiding their identities either. Sosuke admitted without hesitation. The aura of an expert was something that couldn't be easily concealed. No matter how well they acted, their confidence still shone through. In his past life, he had seen that woman named Ryoko in a survivor camp. They never interacted, but he later heard her squad suffered heavy losses during a city scavenging mission, and she vanished after that. They won't die that easily. Besides, we didn't see many zombies on our way out. But what if they do die? Yukino asked subconsciously. Sosuke glanced at the rearview mirror and said indifferently, then it means they shouldn't have crossed paths with me in the first place. Chapter 62, An unexpected surprise. A chill quietly crept into the hearts of Yukino and Haruno as they exchanged glances with Sosuke Kitahara, their eyes now tinted with an indescribable complexity. Only now did they begin to fully realize just how cold and ruthless Sosuke could be when dealing with strangers. For a boy around their own age, this side of him was terrifyingly distant from the one who had saved them from the zombie horde at the hotel, the one who had held Yukino tightly as he soared through the air. Was this his true self? A deep curiosity stirred within Yukino. What had he gone through to become like this? The atmosphere in the car turned heavy. Even the usually bright and confident Haruno found herself unsettled. She clearly remembered that Sosuke had not only fulfilled his promise to her but had far exceeded it. But now, she began to question the sincerity of his earlier words about the friendship we gained. Were those words perhaps a veiled warning? Haruno suddenly felt a sense of helplessness. She realized she was nothing more than a lamb, while Sosuke was a beast, one that had clawed his way to survival on the unforgiving grasslands. Utaha Kasamijoka, on the other hand, remained relaxed. She had known Sosuke the longest and had long since understood his character. As long as no one crossed his bottom line, Sosuke would never abandon her. Sosuke caught their expressions in the rearview mirror but didn't mind. Though the allure of collecting points was significant, there were things that needed to be made clear now to avoid misunderstandings later. There's something I need to tell you all in advance, Sosuke began frankly. The situation will be much worse than you expect. His sharp gaze swept over the three women, his tone firm. It will be worse than your worst imagination. We'll face dangers far beyond what we saw at Chidori Hotel. Besides zombies, you must also factor in the danger posed by other survivors. I hope you can proactively adapt to this world, instead of waiting for it to force you to adapt. Trust me, you won't enjoy the pain of losing people. Will it always be this bad? Yukino asked, her face pale. Just as Sosuke was about to respond, static crackled from the car radio before a clear broadcast came through. Attention all remaining citizens in Tokyo. Do not attempt to head to the Minato ward. The area is now under strict military lockdown. Anyone attempting to breach or enter without authorization will be treated as an infected and shot on sight. Please remain calm, stay indoors, and store essential food supplies. The self-defense forces are gathering and will soon begin sweeping operations in Tokyo. Attention all remaining citizens in Tokyo. The broadcast repeated over and over. For the three women, this was the most hopeful message they had heard since the outbreak, and their excitement was evident. But Sosuke remained completely calm. A faint, cold glint flickered in his eyes. He remembered hearing this exact broadcast in his previous life. Back then, he had also stayed in Tokyo, waiting with a few other survivors, hoping for rescue. But the promised help never came. Half a month later, their food supplies ran out. They barely escaped with their lives, thanks to a chance encounter with a retired train engineer, who helped them flee to Osaka at great cost. Sosuke turned off the radio, his expression steady. He glanced at the rearview mirror and said flatly, "Don't believe the broadcast. You might not trust me now, but time will prove I'm right." Noticing the growing tension, Utaha Kazamijoka chuckled lightly and said, "Anyway, I'm sticking with you from now on. As long as you don't mind, I'll always follow you." "Alright," Sosuke replied with a slight smile. Haruno, however, looked conflicted. "I want to go back to Chiba. No matter what, I need to see it for myself." "Me too," Yukino added softly. By rail, the trip from Tokyo to Chiba via the Junior Sobu Line rapid train would normally take about 40 minutes. It was relatively close, but in their current situation, they couldn't risk heading to Tokyo Station. Even if the station hadn't fallen, boarding a train carried its own deadly risks. If an outbreak occurred mid-journey, they could easily become trapped in a metal coffin. "Then we'll go to Chiba," Sosuke agreed. He currently had no pressing destination. As long as they could get out of Tokyo, he planned to spend the next 2 months focusing on improving his and his team's combat abilities. As long as they could reach the survivor camp where he was destined to meet Sayuri within 3 months, everything would stay on track. Yukino and Haruno exchanged glances, joy lighting up their faces. The car cruised at a steady pace. Occasionally, they encountered a few fleeing vehicles, and sometimes, a lone zombie would wander aimlessly across the road. Whenever possible, Sosuke would avoid them. Only when absolutely necessary would he run them over. Not because he didn't value the points, but because hitting zombies reduced the score awarded. Plus, the windshield was already smeared with pus and blood. The wipers couldn't clear it completely, and too much buildup would impair visibility. They were now not far from the Bayshore route. Once they got on, it would be a straight shot to the Tokyo Bayport. If all went smoothly, they should reach the port before nightfall. The car eventually pulled into a gas station. The fuel gauge had dipped dangerously close to empty. Sosuke wasn't sure how much farther they could go, so he had no choice but to stop and refuel. It was also a chance to restock some food supplies. After parking the car, Sosuke grabbed his katana and scanned the surroundings carefully. A few crashed cars were scattered nearby. One of them, a striking black Mercedes G-Wagon, had unfortunately slammed into a wall, its windshield shattered. It would have been a much more comfortable ride. Bloodstains and corpses littered the ground. Dry leaves rustled in the wind, and the desolate silence weighed heavily on the air. At least there were no moving zombies in sight. That was good news. Sosuke glanced at the gas station's convenience store. The glass doors were closed, and the shelves blocked his view of the interior. "Everyone out. Haruno, refuel. The rest, stay alert. I'll check inside." "Let me go instead," Haruno offered, handing him the gas card. "There can't be more zombies inside than there were at the hotel." "I'll go with you," Yukino added, gripping her sharpened wooden spear tightly. After a quick touch-up with a knife in the car, the tip was once again sharp enough to pierce a zombie's eye socket. "All right." Sosuke nodded and took the gas card, stepping aside to let them take the lead. The gas station was self-service. No staff were required. Just insert the card, enter the amount, and the pump would start. But instead of immediately refueling, Sosuke went to the trunk and conducted a quick inspection. Soon, he found a small metal device hidden under a box. "A tracker, huh?" He pocketed the device without a change in expression. "I'll check the cars for supplies." Utaha Kazamijoka carefully approached the black G-Wagon. Suddenly, a hand shot out from inside, startling her so badly she nearly fell over. "What happened?" Sosuke asked sharply. "Nothing, just a zombie. I can handle it." The zombie flailed wildly but was firmly strapped in by the seatbelt, unable to rise. Its gray eyes glared hungrily as it let out an eerie, bone-chilling growl. Utaha circled to the other side, quickly finishing it off with her knife. Opening the rear door, she peeked inside and immediately lit up with excitement. "Don't open the front door yet. There are weapons in this car." Chapter 63, The Underground Conference. Dozens of meters underground, inside a heavily guarded conference room. The company's most elite field operatives had all been summoned. Among them were Ryoko and Akamoto, who had only recently returned to the underground base. Everyone sat upright, their expressions serious, their eyes fixed on the large screen in front of them. "This is a highly unique virus that reproduces at an extraordinary rate." The speaker was Professor Morikawa, an expert in the field of biological research. The company privately funded thousands of researchers worldwide, though their individual abilities varied greatly. Even within Japan, Professor Morikawa ranked among the top 5 in biological sciences, and he was the youngest of them all. At such a young age, he had already entered the highest circles of academia and was widely regarded as a prodigy. The company had poured substantial resources into his work. Professor Morikawa exuded a sharp confidence, with a decisiveness that left no room for hesitation. His work ethic was famously relentless. He tackled every issue head-on without delay. If a problem wasn't resolved today, he would remain in the lab, without rest, without food, until someone was forced to threaten him into eating to prevent contamination in the experimental environment. Only then would he grudgingly put down his work. Over time, he became one of the most trusted figures within the organization. Just before the large-scale zombie outbreak, the company had assigned personnel to escort Professor Morikawa and his family to the underground base, handing him the data from the initial failed experiments and telling him solemnly, humanity's survival now rests on these materials. As Morikawa read through the documents, his expression shifted from confusion to deep frowns, growing darker with each page. When he saw the horrific condition of the infected, his initial reaction was fear, but soon after, a profound sense of responsibility ignited within him. He quickly drafted a list of capable scholars and experts, which he handed to the company. With the information in hand, he threw himself into the lab, meticulously studying the mysterious virus and combing through every detail of the prior experiments to find a method to suppress the virus's activity. The company immediately acted, assembling most of the people on his list to assist in overcoming this monumental challenge. With the combined efforts of the best minds, Professor Morikawa soon uncovered critical theoretical breakthroughs. This virus is incredibly peculiar. Infected individuals are at their weakest during the onset stage. As the infection progresses, their bodies gradually weaken, and it's during this phase that they're easiest to kill. However, the unfortunate reality is that the virus has already spread on a massive scale. It's airborne, and I'm afraid I must tell you all, everyone is already infected. The conference room erupted in shocked murmurs within the holographic projection. Please, don't panic. Let me finish. Though everyone has been infected, there is a silver lining: the virus has an extremely long incubation period. It only activates after death, invading the brain and taking over the body. Professor Morikawa's voice was calm and steady, exuding the gravitas that drew everyone's attention. If everyone is infected, then why do people who are bitten immediately turn into those monsters? The interruption came from the bald man displayed in the holographic feed, his face marked by suspicion. He was the patriarch of an ancient European family, his wealth so immense that even its numbers were reduced to abbreviated forms. Professor Morikawa wasn't the least bit annoyed. Having climbed from humble beginnings, he understood the delicate art of social dynamics as well as he understood science. That's precisely the genius of this virus: it undergoes a unique form of mutation. He smiled slightly. Here's my theory: once the virus fully takes control of a dead body, it mutates. The mutated virus, transmitted through a bite, enters the body of someone in the incubation stage. The immune system immediately identifies it as a foreign threat. As we all know, the immune system is designed to recognize and eliminate foreign invaders, as well as harmful mutations within the body. This is how the immune system maintains human health through self-tolerance and immune regulation. The conference room fell completely silent, save for Professor Morikawa's voice echoing through the chamber, his words captivating every listener. But have you considered what happens if the virus reproduces too quickly for the immune system to handle? His tone sharpened. What are you suggesting? Everyone in the room, though they weren't necessarily immunologists, had enough scientific literacy to grasp the implications. Many of them were already beginning to connect the dots. At that point, the immune system would overreact, launching an all-out assault against the invading virus. The body wouldn't be able to withstand such an aggressive response. In simpler terms, to protect the greater population, the immune system sacrifices the infected individual. In other words, those who are bitten are essentially killed by their own immune response. Instead, the virus, having fully mutated, invades the brain and seizes control of the corpse. That's why the only way to truly kill a zombie is to destroy the brain. The room descended into chaos, faces twisted in shock. Is this real? How can a virus behave like that? Are you sure this isn't fearmongering? This doesn't make any sense. The holographic projections buzzed with disbelief as the world's most powerful and wealthy elites struggled to accept this horrific reality. Professor Morikawa didn't attempt to stop them. He simply watched, calm and composed, as the panic played out. Slowly, under his steady gaze, the uproar began to subside. Silence returned to the room. In another part of the facility, Ryoko furrowed her brow, her thoughts a mystery. Beside her, Akamoto was dozing off, his head bobbing as he drifted in and out of sleep. Once the crowd had finally settled, Professor Morikawa resumed, his voice low but firm. I know this is difficult to accept, but it is the truth. I must remind you all, if this virus continues to spread unchecked, societal order will collapse. Our world will soon be overrun by zombies. Humanity will follow the fate of the dinosaurs wiped out, not by meteorites, volcanoes, or tsunamis, but by this virus. Chapter 64, A Cruel World. The conference room fell into dead silence. Everyone's faces were filled with terror. No one knew how much time had passed when a middle-aged woman finally muttered in a daze, how could such an evil virus appear? Is this the will of the heavens? Many people's expressions changed again. Deep down, they couldn't help but think the same terrifying thought. It's not the will of the heavens. Professor Morikawa's voice was firm and powerful. His gaze was so sharp it was hard to meet his eyes. And even if it is, then the heavens are telling us to wipe it out. The moment we discovered this virus, the company launched a research project. We've already made solid progress. We've compiled all the data from the first antibody experiments and confirmed the breakthrough path. We can't reverse zombification, but we can suppress the immune system's overreaction. Everyone's spirits lifted in an instant. One by one, they raised their heads. Professor, just tell us what you need. Yeah. We may not have much else, but if you need money or equipment, we can handle that. You must sell it to us first when it's ready. Professor Morikawa raised his hand. The room immediately quieted down. On the holographic projection, countless faces of the world's top elites stared back at him. A surge of determination filled his chest. He straightened his back, his voice steady and confident. The virus's final goal is nothing more than deceiving the immune system, striving for balance so it can survive long-term in a human body. We've already screened several drugs that can temporarily suppress the immune system's reaction. Inspired by the virus itself, we've also started developing a new type of medicine. It will spread through the body just like the virus, but instead of causing harm, it will block the virus from parasitizing healthy cells, completely cutting off its ability to replicate. And most importantly, this drug is harmless to humans. I can tell you all. Our trials on volunteers have already been successful. Professor Morikawa's words hit like a thunderclap. What followed was deafening applause. Meanwhile, the wooden sticks Haruno Yukinoshita and Yukino Yukinoshita had been carrying were long gone, who knows where they'd tossed them. Now, both held sharp machetes. They had found them inside that had crashed into the wall. There just happened to be 3 blades. One for each of the 3 women. The owner probably left in a hurry. Or maybe they had better weapons in hand. Either way, the machetes were a lucky find for Sosuke Kitahara's group. Haruno gripped the machete confidently. An SMG with a cold, metallic gleam was slung over her shoulder as she carefully approached the convenience store by the gas station. Following closely behind, Yukino looked at her sister's aggressive stance and felt a little awkward. She glanced down at the machete in her own hand and sighed softly. She never thought she'd be walking down the street carrying a machete one day. Hold on. Haruno pressed herself against the wall under the convenience store's window. Unlike most stores with huge glass panes, this one only had a few small, barred windows. The entrance was right nearby, but Haruno didn't rush to open it. Instead, she carefully pried open the window a little and peered inside. Sosuke Kitahara, watching this from the side, nodded quietly. He casually tossed the tracker from his pocket into the intern to start refueling. There's a stench. The thick, rotten smell hit her instantly. Haruno's expression darkened. She could immediately tell this wasn't an ordinary odor. Yukino stood on tiptoes behind her, listening carefully for a while but didn't hear any movement. She frowned and gently tapped her machete against the window. Thud, thud, thud. A few knocks echoed inside. But after waiting a while, there was still no response. Could it just be a dead body? Yukino furrowed her brows and looked at Haruno. Haruno was already walking toward the entrance, whispering, "Don't let your guard down, no matter what." Yukino quickly followed, automatically mimicking Sosuke Kitahara's fighting stance to cover her sister. She reached out and carefully pushed open the convenience store door. The first thing they saw was a wall of shelves. Right in front of them was a large, dried blood stain on the floor. Their expressions instantly sharpened. Haruno took the lead inside. Just as she passed the checkout counter, something on the floor caught her attention. It's a zombie's corpse. Looks like someone already took it out. Yukino stepped closer, poking the head cautiously with her machete. It was a woman's body. Just by the figure, it was obvious. When Yukino leaned in for a better look, she realized the head had been cleanly severed from the neck. The face was hacked beyond recognition. One gray, cloudy eyeball was all it took to confirm it was a zombie. She probably attacked someone and got killed on the spot. The person who killed her must have panicked and hacked her face like crazy. Haruno's eye twitched. She waved for Yukino to check the rest of the store. They quickly found the back room door shut. Haruno originally didn't plan to open it. After all, zombies couldn't open doors. But then she hesitated. What if someone alive was inside? If they didn't check, they could get ambushed while scavenging supplies. Haruno gave Yukino a serious look and slowly raised her SMG, aiming straight at the door. Yukino took a deep breath, pressed her ear to the door to listen, then nodded. Ready. Open it. Yukino quickly unlocked the door and slammed it open with a solid kick. But just as the door burst open, a black shadow lunged at her. Ah! Yukino yelped, swinging her machete instinctively. The sickening sound of the blade slicing into flesh rang out. Again and again. Each strike landed. But strangely, there was no roar, no scream. Only the sound of a body twitching uncontrollably. Haruno quickly grabbed her sister's arm and hissed, "Yukino, snap out of it." Yukino finally came to her senses. What she saw wasn't a zombie charging at her. It was a pair of legs dangling and kicking in the air. In her panic, she had slashed the man's abdomen over and over, spilling blood and guts all over the floor. Luckily, nothing too gruesome fell out. Yukino breathed a long sigh of relief, patting her pounding chest. So, he hanged himself? No wonder I didn't hear anything. Let's finish this. There's nothing useful in here anyway. Haruno slung her SMG behind her back and carefully stepped around the blood. Only now did the full scene come into view. A man had used thick, yellow hemp rope to hang himself from the ceiling. His back faced the wall, so his face was hidden, but even as a zombie, his body still struggled desperately, kicking wildly in the air. "Hey, there's a bag here. Sis, look." Yukino rummaged through it and found a photo frame. She handed it to Haruno. Haruno took a closer look. It was a wedding photo. A handsome man and a beautiful, gentle woman. The woman's figure looked exactly like the corpse outside. That zombie was probably his wife. He must have killed her himself. And completely broke down after. Haruno glanced over the hanging zombie. There was a bloody kitchen knife on the floor nearby, its blade still dripping red. The pain behind this scene was too heavy to put into words. Yukino sighed. The world's too cruel now. Even after death, people can't find peace. I'll send him to be with his wife. We're not doing much better, to be honest. Death is freedom. Living means we keep suffering. Haruno let out a bitter smile. She dragged over a stool. Yukino gave a soft grunt, stepped onto it, and drove her machete straight into the zombie's head. The zombie's legs kicked hard a few times, then finally went still. Chapter 65, There's More Than One Kind of Waifu, Part 1, What's Going On? Utaha Kazamijoka cautiously walked into the convenience store, gripping her machete tightly. Yukino Shita had just come out of the back room and quickly filled her in on what had happened. Seeing the female zombie lying lifeless on the floor, Utaha let out a heavy sigh and glanced around. Since this place is safe for now, we shouldn't leave empty-handed. Should we grab some supplies while we're here? I really want to eat some fruit. It's been days since I've had any. Yukino pulled a plastic bag from the shelf and headed to the fruit section to rummage around. Most of the fruits had already rotted after sitting there for too long. After carefully picking through them, she finally managed to find a few green apples that were still good. Oh right, check if there are any vitamin tablets over there. Haruno Shita pointed to another shelf while slinging her new backpack over her shoulder. Utaha immediately nodded. Good idea. If they're still here, we should take them all. It's absolute chaos out there now. Fresh fruit is getting harder to find, and going without vitamins for too long would be a disaster. In just a few minutes, the three of them had scoured the entire convenience store. Everything they needed was stuffed into the backpacks, which were now fully packed. When the group finally filed out of the store, their expressions were far more serious than before. Gone was the fear and panic they'd shown in the beginning. Now, there was only caution and sharp awareness. Sosuke Kitahara couldn't help but sigh to himself. Humans really do adapt quickly to their environment. He helped them toss the heavy backpacks into the car and then turned to ask, "Do you have food and water on the yacht?" "There's plenty in the fridge. We stocked up for a party, but... well, things turned ugly so fast." Haruno sighed softly, her eyes lighting up. "Is there anything else we should bring? It's good that you have some. We won't be staying on the yacht long anyway. Carrying too much will just slow us down. If the dock is crawling with zombies, we won't have time to unload everything. In the apocalypse, nowhere could stay safe forever. The situation could change in an instant." Sosuke Kitahara was used to carrying only the bare essentials on his back, staying light and mobile. That way, if danger hit, he could run at any time. Supplies could always be scavenged later. In the early days of the outbreak, once you got over your fear of zombies, finding resources wasn't that hard. "Let's go," Sosuke said. They had already wasted over 10 minutes at the gas station. It was time to leave. Clack. Suddenly, a faint sound rang out from a distance. It wasn't loud, but it was just enough to catch Sosuke's attention. His hand immediately tightened around his machete as he narrowed his eyes toward the source of the noise. "Hey, look up there!" Utaha suddenly whispered, pointing toward a nearby apartment building. Everyone quickly followed her gaze and saw a half-asleep man standing lazily on his balcony. He was brushing his teeth, foam spilling from his mouth as he mumbled, "Why are you all carrying knives? Heading into a fight or something?" The group was speechless. They stared up at him, completely dumbfounded. The man looked like a total slob, messy, greasy hair, a deadpan expression, and a balcony covered in anime-themed pillows and blankets. Cute girl pillowcases fluttered on the drying rack beside him. The word that immediately popped into everyone's mind: otaku. Yukino let out a long, exasperated sigh. Haruno barely managed to hold back her laughter. She smiled and asked, "Hey, the world's basically ended out here. You seriously didn't know? What? No way. Ended? You're not seriously talking about the apocalypse, right?" The otaku's expression twisted in shock as he leaned over the railing to stare at them in disbelief. Sosuke couldn't help but laugh. He clawed his way out of zombie hordes and had been running for his life constantly, but this guy? This guy had no clue what was going on. But then, the otaku burst out laughing. "Gotcha. You really thought I didn't know? What, do I look that dumb?" Haruno suddenly felt an overwhelming urge to shoot him right then and there. Seriously? At a time like this, he was still joking around? But the otaku just shrugged like it was no big deal. "Zombies. That's not my problem. What, you think they're gonna climb all the way up here and bite me? Besides, I've got enough food to last a year if I ration properly. And most importantly, I've got plenty of waifus to keep me company." As if to prove his point, the guy suddenly kissed his waifu pillow right on the foot. "Unlike you lot running around in your car, one day you're probably gonna get yourself killed out there and nobody will even be around to pick up your corpse. Hey. You're asking for it." Haruno raised her SMG and aimed it straight at him. The otaku's face paled as he immediately ducked and disappeared from the balcony. A few seconds later, a white flag slowly rose from the balcony, swaying weakly in the breeze. This guy. He was actually kind of funny. Sosuke couldn't help but laugh. He didn't really feel like wasting his energy on him. There was an SUV blocking the stairwell to the building the otaku lived in. A few rotting zombie hands could still be seen clawing at the back of the car. The SUV was completely wedged into the entrance, sealing off both the zombies trying to get in and the humans trying to get out. "Let's go." "Forget about him," Sosuke said. "Lucky for you," Haruno muttered bitterly as she lowered her SMG. "Hey, wait. Don't go. I'm sorry. Let's talk." Hearing them about to leave, the otaku suddenly panicked and jumped back onto the balcony. But Sosuke didn't even flinch. He kept walking. The otaku quickly shouted, "Wait. Don't go yet. I've got weapons. If you don't care about knives, I've got guns too." At the mention of guns, Sosuke immediately stopped and raised an eyebrow. "Guns?" The otaku nodded like mad. "Yeah, a handgun. I found it in the hallway." "How many?" Sosuke asked. "Just one." Seeing Sosuke frown, the otaku quickly explained, "I don't use guns. I don't go outside. What would I even need it for?" "What do you want in exchange?" Sosuke asked. "Everything in the convenience store. I want all of it." The otaku shouted shamelessly. "That's too much. We don't have time to waste." "Okay, fine. Just give me all the cigarettes, a few bottles of water, and a few boxes of instant noodles." The cigarettes on the counter, 1 case of water, and 1 box of instant noodles. "You give us the gun first, then you get the goods." "No way." The otaku refused instantly. "Then forget it," Sosuke replied without hesitation. Wait. Seeing Sosuke turn to leave, the otaku panicked. "Come on, be reasonable. How do I know you won't just take the gun and run?" Sosuke frowned. "We'll give you the water and noodles first. You hand over the gun. Cigarettes come last. If you agree, we trade. If not, we're gone. You're already being that generous." What can I even say? The otaku let out a bitter laugh and finally lit a cigarette, closing his eyes in satisfaction as he took a long, deep drag. Sosuke smirked. Just as he thought the water and instant noodles weren't the real prize. This guy just couldn't resist his nicotine cravings. He probably didn't have much of a cigarette stash left, and he couldn't bear to smoke what little he had. Until the deal was settled, he'd forced himself to hold back. But the moment they reached an agreement, he couldn't stop himself from lighting up. Chapter 66, Megami Kato, Part 2, a case of bottled water, a box of instant noodles, and 2 full bags of cigarettes were carried out of the convenience store by the 3 girls. Watching them, all sweaty and breathing heavily, Sosuke Kitahara suddenly paused. He realized he was starting to get used to letting them handle all the dirty, heavy work. Before the apocalypse, these 3 girls would have been considered untouchable goddesses, especially the Yukinoshita sisters, both from elite families. Without some extraordinary twist of fate, Sosuke Kitahara probably would have never crossed paths with them. Let alone having them haul supplies for him. The apocalypse was like a prostitute, it only showed its charms to the strong. Sosuke lowered his gaze in self-mockery but quickly lifted his head again. His dark eyes were now burning even brighter. He believed it. In the future, among those qualified to be called the strong, he would definitely earn his place. Sosuke, we've got everything, but how are we going to get it to him? Utaha Kazamijoka asked, glancing at the SUV that was still blocking the stairwell entrance. Maybe the memory of that narrow escape in the hallway still lingered in her mind. Her eyes were filled with concern. How do you expect me to get these to you? You want me to carry them upstairs? A single handgun isn't enough, Sosuke called out. Hold on. I'll be right back. The otaku excitedly ran inside. A few minutes later, he tossed down a rope from his balcony. At the end of it was a hook with a woven bag attached. Looking closer, it turned out to be an entire pulley system complete with both fixed and movable pulleys. Sosuke's interest was piqued. He casually tossed the bottled water and instant noodles into the woven bag and asked, "Did you build this pulley system yourself? How is it? Pretty clever, right?" The otaku smugly puffed on his cigarette as the pulleys whirred and spun while he hauled the goods up. "Sometimes I just didn't feel like going downstairs to get deliveries, so I put this together. Took me a bit of time, but totally worth it now. Impressive handiwork." Sosuke silently gave him a mental thumbs up. He waited until the otaku retrieved the instant noodles and bottled water, then tossed the handgun into the woven bag and lowered it back down. "The gun's inside. Hurry up and toss the cigarettes in. You guys better keep your word." The otaku rubbed his hands together anxiously, his eager eyes shining like a starving wild dog that had just found a bone. Sosuke carefully checked the handgun. Confirmed it was the real deal. Then he tossed the 2 bags of cigarettes into the woven bag. "Yukino, you hold on to this." He handed the handgun to Yukino Yukinoshita and glanced up at the balcony. The otaku was now frantically pulling up the pulley system, his eyes burning like he'd just struck gold. Sosuke suddenly asked, "What's your name?" The otaku paused, then replied, "Ishida. Ishida Kotaru. PFFT. That's quite the mighty name," Haruno Yukinoshita sneered. "Ishida Kotaru, wanna come with us?" Sosuke pointed to the SUV that was blocking the stairwell. "If you're coming, I can help you get out." Ishida Kotaru looked down and shook his head. "Nah, I've got plenty of food at home. No need to risk my life outside. Besides, the broadcast said the self-defense forces will be here soon to wipe out the zombies. You guys should get moving. More zombies are heading your way." Ishida Kotaru suddenly pointed to the street across from them. Sure enough, a few zombies were stumbling out of an alley, clearly drawn by the noise. Sosuke didn't try to convince him further. Without another word, he called the girls and drove away. Somewhere in Tokyo, in a secluded 2-story house, more than 20 students and teachers who had escaped from Toyoasaki Academy were all crammed into the living room on the first floor. There were both boys and girls, all still wearing their school uniforms. But their young faces were now clouded with fear. Megamika too was among them. On the day of the outbreak, most of the zombies had been lured away by Sosuke Kitahara, giving the survivors a chance to escape from the school building. Of course, many others had stayed behind forever. This group had fled Toyoasaki Academy together on the same school bus. "It's already 1 in the afternoon. Why aren't they back yet?" A middle-aged female teacher paced anxiously by the window. Her entire posture practically screamed agitation. Megamika too, sitting quietly on the floor, glanced at her, then lowered her head again in silence. Her uniform was stained with dried blood, and her once delicate face was now smudged and dirty. Next to her hand lay a crowbar, its surface dark with dried blood. She had found it yesterday while scavenging for supplies at a supermarket. The food in this house's fridge had been devoured in no time. After starving for a day, the group quickly fell into heated arguments. Some even fought over the remaining bottled water, students and teachers alike. With so many mouths to feed, sitting around doing nothing would only lead to disaster. The grade director realized this quickly. To prevent the situation from spiraling out of control, he proposed that they draw lots to select 5 people to go out for supplies the next day. Megamika too had the misfortune of being chosen. Out of the 5 who went out, only 2 came back. The danger they faced was obvious. And the supplies they brought back? Barely a dozen packs of instant noodles. It's been almost 4 hours. They're not in trouble, are they? A boy sighed in despair. "Yeah, I thought they made it back," the grade director said from the couch, rubbing his bloated belly with a miserable look. But the others said nothing. Everyone had been half-starved for days, surviving on scraps with no nutrition at all. They didn't even have the strength to speak. Suddenly, a tall boy stood up and declared loudly, "We need to leave this place." Megamika lifted her head. She recognized him. His name was Uedo Aikawa. He was part of her group yesterday, the other survivor who made it back. His sudden declaration caught everyone's attention. The students looked surprised. No one expected Yuito Aikawa to say something like that out of the blue. Only Megamika seemed deep in thought. The grade director slowly rose from the couch, his face dark. Yuito, don't act on impulse. The school bus is out of gas. Are you planning to make everyone walk? Yuito Aikawa didn't budge. Better to take our chances than starve to death here. If we wait a few more days, no one will even have the strength to lift a weapon. We might as well try to escape while we still can. We might survive. The grade director sneered, his tone dismissive. Didn't you hear the broadcast? The self-defense forces will come rescue us in a few days. Staying here is the safest option. Safe, my ass. Yuito Aikawa shot back coldly, completely ignoring the director's furious glare. His voice was icy and full of suppressed rage. If a zombie horde surrounds this place, can this house stop them? If even one entry point gets breached, we're all dead. Chapter 67, The Same Scene, A Different Ending, Part 3, Shut up. Stop spreading fear. Where's this zombie horde you're talking about? I don't see a single one out there. The grade director barked, his anger surging. He'd never liked Yuito Aikawa. Bottom of the class, dyed hair, smoking, skipping school, fighting. He ticked all the boxes for a delinquent. If it weren't for the fact that Yuito was holding a fire axe and was still useful, he would have gotten rid of him a long time ago. By the time you see the horde, it'll already be too late, Yuito Aikawa said coldly. It's only been a few days. Have you already forgotten how we escaped the school? If we wait until we're surrounded, none of us will make it out alive. The living room instantly fell into uneasy murmurs. Several students' faces turned pale as they recalled the nightmare at the school. They all knew just how dangerous that had been. Megamika too frowned. She was smart, one quick thought, and she understood Yuito was telling the truth. The reason she hadn't thought of this herself was because, as a student, she was used to following the teacher's lead in situations like this. But Yuito Aikawa was different. He was a delinquent through and through. He'd never cared about the teacher's authority. He always thought they were useless and nothing but dead weight. The grade director was visibly shaken. The student's unease left him at a loss, and even he had to admit that Yuito's words made sense. The two female teachers beside him were also starting to feel uneasy. But asking him to abandon the safety of this house and risk his life outside? He was terrified. That's why, during the lot drawing, he'd secretly hidden the slip with his own name. Unfortunately for him, he held the highest authority here. Everyone was waiting for him to make the final decision. I really am an idiot to have placed my hopes on people like you. Yuito Aikawa watched the scene with disappointment and shook his head. But he didn't bother mocking them further. He simply patted the dust off himself and said, whatever. I'm not gonna waste my breath. From now on, we're going separate ways. He slung his backpack over his shoulder and walked straight toward the corner where last night's leftovers were stacked. There were only 2 bowls of instant noodles left, barely half a bowl per person with over 20 mouths to feed. Times were tight. The others exchanged glances, then all quietly looked toward the grade director. Yuito crouched down, rummaging through the bowls as he muttered, if you don't want to leave, that's fine. I'm leaving. I'd rather be eaten by zombies than stay here and play the hero. Hold it right there. The grade director, feeling the pressure from the stares around him, immediately stepped forward and snapped, Yuito Aikawa. What do you think you're doing? If you want to leave, fine, but the instant noodles stay. That's not yours alone. Why should you take everyone's food? Why should I? Yuito Aikawa slowly looked up, his lips curling into a cold sneer as he pointed at the instant noodles on the ground. Then let me ask you, where did these come from? I went out and risked my life to bring them back yesterday. I didn't even say you couldn't eat them, and now you're acting like you've got some authority over me? The only one here who has the right to say that to me is Megamika too. Who the hell do you think you are? Go get your own food, then I'll get on my knees and apologize to you while slurping down your noodles. Yuito-kun, isn't that a little too much? One of the female teachers adjusted her glasses and stepped in. Another male teacher quickly joined her, speaking in a slow, patronizing tone, we're all in the same boat. We should be helping each other. Sure, you brought the noodles back, but you were picked through a fair lottery. And don't forget it took all of us working together to make it this far. I drove the school bus here, remember? Can't you be a little less selfish? Don't you dare twist the truth. Yuito Aikawa glared at him, his temper boiling over. If you want to talk about fairness, then everyone here owes me their lives. If it weren't for me and my brothers clearing the path, all of you would have been zombie chow by now. Yesterday, 2 of my brothers died out there. Go on, give me their lives back. Yuito-kun, now you're just being unreasonable. That's not how this works, the male teacher sighed. We'll pay you back for what we owe, but you can't take the noodles. There are still girls here, you'd let them go hungry? One person started, and soon 6 or 7 voices chimed in, all ganging up on him. Listening to their self-righteous babbling, Megumika too felt incredibly suffocated. She was deeply disappointed. She quietly wondered if she should really stay here. Yuito Aikawa, now the target of everyone's accusations, gripped his fire axe tightly. His face alternated between shades of pale and red as he seethed, his breathing rough and heavy. The male teacher instinctively took a step back but quickly realized he wasn't alone. He had the grade director behind him and a few other male students standing in support. His confidence slowly returned as he firmly gripped the kitchen knife in his hand. He glared back at Yuito, betting that Yuito wouldn't dare turn against so many people. The two sides locked eyes for a full 30 seconds, neither backing down. Everyone instinctively held their breath. Even Megumika clenched her fists so tightly her knuckles turned white. The entire room was thick with tension, like a spark could set it ablaze at any second. Just then heavy knocking suddenly echoed from the door outside. The two stand-off groups froze at the same time. Someone was shouting outside, calling to be let in. Wait, that sounds like Tomoyaki from Class 1A. They're back. The middle-aged female teacher cried out in delight. She quickly turned to the tense groups in the room and urged, "Stop fighting. Let's see what they brought back. Maybe we won't have to fight over instant noodles after all. Doesn't matter what they brought back. I'm leaving this place today, no matter what." Yuito Aikawa huffed, but still tossed the instant noodles from his bag onto the floor. Seeing this, the others let it drop for now and turned to the door. The female teacher and several others rushed over excitedly to unlock it, while the rest gathered around in anticipation. But as soon as the teacher opened the security door, she was left utterly stunned. Who are you?" she stammered. Standing outside were 2 burly, rough-looking men with hardened faces. Tomoyaki, the boy who had been shouting earlier, was being dragged by one of them like a helpless little chick. His face was swollen and bruised beyond recognition. Who knew how many slaps he had taken to end up like that? Even his glasses were cracked. The man holding Tomoyaki tossed him inside like garbage and immediately barged into the house. The other man swiftly shut the door behind him, sweeping a cold gaze over the entire room. "Hand over all your food and water. Now," he barked. "Who the hell do you think you are, barging in like this?" Yuito Aikawa, who had been holding back this whole time, didn't hesitate. He charged forward, gripping his fire axe tightly. The crowd instinctively parted to make way. But before Yuito could even get close, the man at the door suddenly drew a handgun from his waist and pulled the trigger without hesitation. Bang! The deafening gunshot echoed through the house. Yuito Aikawa's eyes widened in disbelief, his body still frozen in the charging stance. Slowly, he lowered his gaze to his chest. A tiny bullet hole had appeared on his shirt, and blood was already seeping through, staining the fabric red. Clutching his chest, Yuito stumbled back 2 steps, his legs giving out as he collapsed onto the floor. His body twitched twice, then went completely still, his head lolling to the side. Dead. Chapter 68, Brave. Megumika 2. Part 4, the sudden gunshot left everyone in the living room frozen in shock. Panic swept through the room. Several girls let out terrified screams, while the male teacher who had been arguing with Yuito Aikawa collapsed onto the floor, his legs giving out. "Shut it. Keep screaming and I'll blow your heads off." The bald thug waved his gun at the crowd, his cold voice cutting through the chaos. "I said, hand over the food. Are you all deaf?" Silence instantly swallowed the room. No one had expected this. Not only did these men have guns, but they had killed without hesitation. The 2 thugs, one bald, the other with a cropped buzz cut, were wearing prison uniforms. Escaped convicts. "Can't hear me, huh?" The bald man suddenly stepped forward. His heavy boots thudded against the floor, and everyone flinched in terror. The middle-aged female teacher, closest to him, stumbled backward in panic and stammered, Please, let's talk this through. I'll get you the food right away. Everyone, to the wall. Move." The bald man waved his gun threateningly, and everyone rushed to the corner of the room to squat in fear. The other thug picked up the fire axe from Yuito Aikawa's body and viciously slammed it into his skull. Blackened blood mixed with brain matter splattered across the floor. Everyone's hearts pounded wildly. Their bodies went cold. These 2 weren't just escaped prisoners, they were the kind of men who killed without blinking. There was no doubt they'd taken lives long before the apocalypse began. "Watch it, Aizawa. You almost got that on me," the bald man grunted in annoyance. Aizawa scratched his head awkwardly. "Sorry, boss. I just didn't want to go soft and have this guy come back like those things outside. Seriously though, what's going on? People shot dead are standing up again? This is freaky. You asking me? Who the hell do I ask?" The bald man leaned against the door frame and lowered his gun, tossing his backpack to the floor. "Doesn't matter. At least we broke out in the chaos. I was going crazy being locked up for years. True enough. If those monsters hadn't shown up in the prison, they wouldn't have transferred us, and the transport wouldn't have flipped over. Guess fate was on our side, huh? Just us brothers making it out alive. Hee hee hee. Aizawa chuckled along but immediately dropped his grin when facing the others. He glared at the trembling group and barked, "What, you all enjoying story time? Hurry up and get us some instant noodles." The terrified crowd exchanged helpless glances. Slowly, everyone turned to look at the grade director. The grade director tried to slip away but couldn't. With no choice, he forced himself to speak. We're from Toyosaki Academy. We can meet your demands, but please don't hurt us." "Shut up. I'm starving. Hurry up and make the noodles." Aizawa barked impatiently as he pulled out another weapon from his waistband, a handgun. The grade director shrank in fear and quickly ran to the kitchen. Megamikitu's gaze lingered on Yuito Aikawa's lifeless body. A comrade who had survived death with her. Now gone, not by zombies, but by a human bullet. The instant noodles they had argued over earlier were now willingly offered by the grade director to appease these thugs. She knew the grade director wasn't necessarily wrong. He was doing it to keep everyone alive. But it still made her feel miserable. Utterly miserable. She couldn't even put that feeling into words. "Anyone here know how to treat wounds?" The bald man sprawled on a sofa, pulling up his pants leg. Only then did the others notice his injured calf, crudely wrapped in bloody strips of cloth. Everyone exchanged glances, but no one dared to speak. "What? You think I'm already dead? I'll tell you right now, if I turn into one of those things, none of you will walk out of here alive." The bald man sneered as he swept his gaze across the room. He stood and pulled open his jacket, revealing a black-green grenade dangling from his waist. "Relax. You're not going to turn into a zombie." Megamikitu suddenly stepped forward from the group and walked directly up to him. "You were probably scratched by something else. The blood from your wound is still red. If you had been bitten or scratched by a zombie, the blood would have turned black. But your bandage is a mess. If you don't treat that wound soon, it'll get infected. Worst case? You'll lose that leg." "Oh? You know quite a bit. Are you a medic?" the bald man asked, raising his brow. Megami shook her head calmly. "I've only learned basic first aid and emergency bandaging, but it's enough for a wound like yours. As long as you give me alcohol, I can guarantee you won't get an infection. But I have one condition." "Ha? You think you're in a position to bargain with my boss?" Aizawa jumped up angrily and raised his hand, clearly ready to slap her. "Hey!" The bald man waved his hand in annoyance. Aizawa immediately backed down, smiling awkwardly as he sat back down. The bald man casually weighed his gun in his palm, pulled out a cloth from his pocket, and began wiping it slowly. He stared at Megami with interest. "Tell me what gives you the confidence to make demands right now. Do you even understand your situation?" Megami nodded, her voice steady. "I've been trained in emergency first aid. I once stopped the bleeding of a car accident victim whose leg had been pierced by steel rods. The bleeding was severe, but I managed to stabilize him until the ambulance arrived. I can confidently say no one here is more capable than me. And by the way, we've contacted the police. The Tokyo Metropolitan Police promised to send a rescue team tonight. If you're still here when they arrive, you'll be in serious trouble. Are you threatening me?" The bald man's face darkened. He narrowed his sharp eyes, then suddenly stood and pressed his gun hard against Megami's forehead. His murderous aura surged as he coldly hissed, "Do you really think I won't shoot you right now?" Everyone held their breath. Fear filled their faces. The memory of Yuito Aikawa's death was still fresh and no one dared to speak, terrified of provoking this monster. But Megami didn't flinch. Even though her heart was pounding wildly and her trembling fingers dug into her pet leg, she forced herself to stand her ground. "Be brave, Megamikitu. Don't be afraid." She silently encouraged herself, meeting his gaze without backing down. "I'm not threatening you. I'm just asking for a chance to keep everyone safe. You must have family, 2 wives, children. I'll do my best to treat your injury. In return, please let us go. Don't harm us." "Oh? How did you know we were planning to harm you?" The bald man suddenly laughed, lowering his gun with an amused grin. Aizawa also glanced toward the corner of the room. 7 or 8 girls were huddled together, all trembling and staring at them in terror. Aizawa's gaze fell on one particularly pretty girl, and he flashed a disgusting grin. The girl immediately ducked behind the others, shaking uncontrollably. Megami frowned. "You kept staring at the girls the moment you came in. Your buddy over there licked his lips several times. And those prison uniforms you're wearing? It's not hard to figure out what you're thinking. Ha ha ha. You've got sharp eyes, little girl. And you're pretty brave too." The bald man burst out laughing, slapping his thigh in delight. Aizawa laughed along with him. The bald man gave Megumi another once-over and grinned. It's been a while since I've met someone this interesting. Hey, little girl, what do you say? How about ditching this worthless bunch and joining me instead? Hanging around here is a waste of your talent. Chapter 69, Betrayal. Megumi pressed her lips tightly together, her straightened posture leaving no room for argument. Fine. The bald thug's face remained blank as he nodded and then pointed to the other side of the room. If you can fix my leg, I'll let you live. I swear, my brother and I won't lay a hand on you. But don't push your luck. Go sit over there by yourself. Megumi hesitated for a moment, glancing at the girls huddled in the other corner. She bit her lip and, clearly struggling, quietly moved to sit alone in the corner. The bald man's gaze then shifted to Tomoyaki, who was still crouched by the wall, covering half his face in fear. The thug licked his lips and scowled, though his tone was reluctantly playful. TCH, you little brat, you can go too. I'll keep my word. Oh okay, sure. Tomoyaki exhaled in relief, tears welling up in his eyes as he quickly scurried over to Megumi's side. Megumi looked at her classmate in disbelief. Tomoya. Don't tell me. It was you? Megumi wasn't stupid. In fact, she was far too sharp. Tomoya's behavior made it painfully obvious he had struck some kind of deal with these thugs. That was the only reason they'd spared him. And remembering how he'd been shouting to open the door earlier, it wasn't hard to piece it together. I. Tomoyaki buried his face in his hands, his voice trembling. He'd always been nothing more than a hardcore shut-in otaku. After being slapped repeatedly, after watching his classmates get murdered one by one, he'd been so terrified he had wet himself. Noticing the disappointment in Megumi's eyes, a heavy, suffocating emotion filled his chest. He wiped his tears and choked out, Megumi, I didn't have a choice. If I didn't agree to their terms, they would have killed me. You didn't see how the others died. As he spoke, he curled into himself and started sobbing uncontrollably. Megumi pressed her lips tightly together, her face filled with disappointment. She no longer said a word. Everyone had the right to survive. Tomoya was no exception. But the way he had chosen to survive, Megumi couldn't accept it. At that moment, she realized they were not the same kind of person. Blaming him now was pointless. What should I do next? Megumi's mind raced. The men in front of her were cold-blooded killers. She couldn't place all her hopes on their mercy. They had guns, and one of them was carrying a grenade. If the others in the room didn't have the will to resist, there was nothing Megumi could do alone. Trying to fight back now would only get her killed. I'll go get the supplies. Megumi frowned but ultimately chose to study the situation first. She got up and rummaged through the cabinets, soon returning with a household medical kit. The bald man casually stretched out his leg when he saw her. Meanwhile, the grade director carefully brought over 2 steaming bowls of instant noodles, placing them on the coffee table as if he were handling treasure. Ah, finally. I haven't eaten all day, I'm starving. Aizawa immediately grabbed a bowl and devoured it hungrily. The bald man tucked his gun back into his waistband and began eating his noodles at a more leisurely pace. The only sound in the living room was the slurping of noodles. No one else dared to make a sound. Especially the other girls. They all knew the moment those two finished eating, their nightmare would begin. Do something. Think of something quick. The middle-aged female teacher sobbed as she pushed the male teacher who had clashed with Yuito Aikawa earlier. But he was completely helpless. The thugs had 2 guns. Charging at them now would just be suicide. Just then, a girl suddenly stood up. Her delicate face was twisted in panic as she bit her lip and took a step forward. W will let me go, and I'll tell you a secret. Oh? A secret? Let's hear it. The bald man put down his bowl and casually pulled his gun from his waist. The girl hesitantly walked over, trembling, and began whispering in his ear. Megumi's eyes widened in shock. Yuko. Have you lost your mind? How could you do this? Shut up and mind your own business. The bald man immediately shot her a vicious glare, and Yuko, unfazed by the outburst, simply raised her voice so everyone could hear. She's lying to you. She never called the police. The police hotline is dead. No one's coming to save us. Yuko? Megumi could hardly believe what she was hearing. Why would Yuko betray her? Megumi had been pleading for her life just moments ago. But Yuko just sneered, her eyes filled with resentment. What? You think I'm wrong? You claimed you knew first aid to save yourself. You jumped out to grab the chance. What's the difference between you and me? Besides, emergency first aid is a standard high school elective. Who here can't do it? If you hadn't spoken first, this job would have been mine. That's enough. I don't want to hear another word. The bald man impatiently waved his hand. Yuko immediately shut her mouth, sneaking a flattering glance at him and smiling nervously. Boss. I can do the job too. I'll do it even better than her. There are plenty of other women here. Just let me go. Not bad. There aren't many people here, but it seems there are some interesting ones. The bald man seemed genuinely amused. You've got some talent, girl. Yuko smiled eagerly, even shooting Megumi a smug, victorious look as she leaned closer to the bald man. But right then he calmly said, "Wanna know why I was in prison? I've always hated traitors." Eh? Yuko's smile froze on her face. Her body trembled violently as a powerful force suddenly gripped her from behind. Aizawa raised the fire axe high and slammed it into her skull without hesitation. Hot blood splattered across Aizawa's face. He didn't even flinch. Yanking the axe free, he kicked Yuko's small body to the floor. Blood and pale brain matter oozed from her forehead. She died without even making a sound. Her wide eyes still held that look of disbelief. She probably never understood why it had turned out like this. She had surrendered. She had exposed Megumi's lie. So why was she still killed? Why was it that Megumi could live, but she couldn't? Idiot. Trying to play games in front of us? Aizawa spat on Yuko's corpse and wiped the blood from his face with his palm. His entire body radiated pure malice as he glared at the others. All of you better stay in line. This is what happens to anyone who steps out of line. The others felt like they had fallen into an ice-cold abyss. Everyone stared at Yuko's corpse, their entire bodies trembling. Their faces were so pale, they looked worse than the floor tiles. Some with weaker stomachs couldn't hold it in any longer and started vomiting. Chapter 70, The Violet Silhouette. TCH, what a bunch of weaklings. Throwing up over this. The bald thug pinched his nose in disgust and turned away. Aizawa quickly nodded, waving his gun at a few people and barking, "You! And you! Clean this up. Didn't you learn anything in school? Throwing up wherever you please. Have some decency." The two quickly cleaned the floor. Meanwhile, Megumi Getu, who had just finished rebandaging the bald man's leg, nervously returned to her corner. She had thought that after Yuko's betrayal, the thugs would beat her or worse. But to her surprise, the bald man only gave her a deep, unreadable look and then waved her off. Still, Megumi's heart was far from calm. Yuko's betrayal had removed the last bit of hesitation in the thugs. Knowing now that no police rescue was coming, the two killers lounged lazily on the sofa, clearly in no rush to leave. What an idiot, Megumi muttered bitterly, glancing at the bloodstains on the floor. Yuko's and Yuito Aikawa's bodies had long since been dragged away. Megumi felt deeply uneasy, and more than that, helpless. Things had spiraled completely beyond her control. Worse still, Tomoyaki sat beside her with his face buried in his knees, completely withdrawn, offering no one to talk to or strategize with. Just then, Aizawa, patting his belly, whispered something into the bald thug's ear. His eyes never left the huddled group of girls, and his expression twisted into something sickeningly perverse. The bald man leaned back, frowning. "It's still early. Can't you hold it until night?" Aizawa glared at him, grumbling, "I've held back for almost 5 years. I can't wait anymore. With monsters everywhere, I could die at any time. That'd be a hell of a way to go. Can you not say disgusting things?" The bald man cracked his neck and rolled his eyes. "Fine, go, but make it quick. I can't keep them all in line by myself." Aizawa lit up instantly, bowing repeatedly. "Thanks, boss. I knew you'd have my back. If there's a next life, I'm sticking with you again. Shut up with the crap. Bad omen. Move. Don't keep me waiting." "Got it." Aizawa beamed and walked straight toward the terrified girls. The girls' faces turned pale as they instinctively looked to the grade director, their eyes pleading for help. Seeing Aizawa reach for one of them, the grade director, who had cowered until now, finally found his courage. He ran over and desperately grabbed Aizawa's arm. "Please. Please don't touch my students. I have money. I can give you money. I've been teaching for years. I've saved up 2 million, no, 3 million yen." Smack. Aizawa backhanded him across the face, sending him sprawling to the floor. He kicked him hard twice and snarled, "Screw your money. Do I look like I've never seen cash before?" He turned back to the girls, grinning wickedly. Suddenly, the middle-aged female teacher stepped forward, forcing a calm smile. "Please, take me instead. They're just children. I learned posture training when I was young. I won't disappoint you." Aizawa didn't even look at her. He shoved her aside and spat on the floor. You look like dry tree bark. Get out of my sight." Without hesitation, Aizawa grabbed a girl like a hawk snatching a chick. "What are you doing? Let me go. Let me go." The girl panicked, struggling desperately, but Aizawa slung her over his shoulder as she screamed. No one dared stop him. The grade director pounded the floor, weeping bitterly. This is monstrous. Absolutely monstrous. Megumi couldn't watch any longer. She stood up and shouted at the bald man, "You promised you wouldn't hurt us. You're breaking your word." "I kept my word. That's why you're still alive." The bald man raised his gun, aiming it coldly at Megumi. "I only promised to spare you. I never said I wouldn't touch the others. Stop testing my patience. You push me again, I'll kill you next." "Megumi. Stop. He's serious. He'll kill you." Tomoyaki tugged on her sleeve in panic, but Megumi angrily shook him off, refusing to even look at him. Her chest tightened. She thought back to when everyone had confronted Yuito Aikawa. Why weren't they afraid then? Was it because they knew Yuito wouldn't kill? Because Yuito didn't have a gun? Or maybe both? 1,000 questions flashed through Megumi's mind. She suddenly hated herself, hated that she didn't have a gun. Hated that she didn't dare to be the first to fight back. "I'll kill you." Suddenly, the male teacher who had clashed with Yuito before charged forward, gripping a kitchen knife tightly in his hand. But Aizawa was ready. He swiftly pulled out his gun. Bang! The gunshot rang out. The male teacher, still clutching his knife, collapsed to the floor, a bullet hole in the back of his head. "All of you. On your knees, hands over your heads. Anyone stands, I'll blow their brains out. Move." The bald man roared as he aimed at the crowd. No one doubted he would follow through. A few boys who had been ready to resist looked at the growing pool of blood and a lifeless body, their bodies trembling as they slowly knelt down again. "That's more like it." The bald man spun his gun in his hand, grinning. "We don't want to kill anyone. As long as you cooperate, no one else has to die. Just let them have a little chat upstairs. They'll live." The girl's desperate cries echoed from the second-floor hallway, gradually fading, but her screams continued to linger in everyone's minds. A suffocating despair engulfed the room. In the second-floor bedroom, Aizawa kicked open the door, still carrying the girl. He tossed her onto the bed as she shrieked and tried to escape, but he grabbed her hair and pinned her down, laughing maniacally as he began tearing at her skirt. Just then, a cold blade plunged into the back of Aizawa's neck, piercing straight through and exiting from his throat. Ugh! His sick laughter halted instantly. His gaze dropped, stunned, to the icy blade now pressing against his chin, dark red blood dripping from the blade's tip. A chilling voice exploded in his ear. "Do you think this is something a human would do? Don't think women are easy prey." The blade slowly slid out, its edge slicing his throat cleanly. Swish! The sound of the blade returning to its sheath. Aizawa's throat immediately gushed blood, his body convulsing violently. He instinctively clutched his throat, trying desperately to stop the bleeding, but blood poured relentlessly through his fingers. The girl on the bed stared in shock, her eyes wide, frozen even as blood splattered across her body. Her gaze followed the departing figure to the door. The woman paused, her side profile illuminated faintly by the light. Long, flowing violet hair. Calm, piercing eyes beneath elegant brows. A perfectly shaped nose and delicate lips. She's so beautiful. Even the girl couldn't help but be captivated. Her mind searched for words but found none. The girl in front of her had a dangerous, enchanting beauty, like a blooming violet flower seemingly fragile, yet her upright posture radiated strength. Fear and admiration intertwined. Aizawa, who moments ago had been a vicious monster, now writhed like a dying insect on the bed, gasping hoarsely. "Want to know how it feels to kill your enemy? There's a knife on his belt." The girl stared blankly as the violet-haired woman disappeared into the hallway. She slowly reached out, grabbed the knife from Aizawa's waist, and a deep, consuming hatred filled her eyes. She lunged forward and plunged the blade into his face without hesitation. Screaming, she stabbed him again and again, venting her terror, her rage, her despair. Each thrust came with another scream. Each stab deeper than the last. Until Aizawa's face was nothing but unrecognizable flesh, until her own body and face were drenched in blood. But she didn't care. She kept stabbing. Again. And again. And again. Chapter 71, My Name Is. TCH, what the hell is that noise? The bald thug cursed impatiently, sitting on the sofa as his sharp gaze swept across the people in the living room. Suddenly, his instincts kicked in. Something was wrong. The sound wasn't right. Something had gone terribly wrong. Years of experience on the streets made him instantly alert. Gripping his gun tightly, he sprang to his feet just in time to see a violet-haired figure step into the hallway. Megumi too, who had been racking her brain for a way out, also noticed the unfamiliar girl at that exact moment. She froze. Bathed in sunlight pouring through the stairwell window, the girl's flawless face seemed to glow, her violet hair cascading like silk. Even Megumi found herself momentarily breathless. When did she get here? Questions flooded Megumi's mind, but she had no time to dwell on them. Her expression changed drastically when she realized the bald thug had already raised his gun and aimed at the mysterious girl. "Watch out!" Megami instinctively shouted. The violet-haired girl, calm and composed, flashed a hint of curiosity in her eyes. For a moment, Megami thought she even saw her smile faintly. What is she smiling at? Doesn't she realize how dangerous this is? That man is aiming a gun at her. "Who are you?" The bald thug's instincts screamed at him this girl was dangerous. Her stance, the way she gripped her sword. It reminded him of their gang's former leader. Decades ago, their boss had built the gang from nothing through deadly swordsmanship, expanding it one brutal duel at a time. The bald thug never cared for swords. He had long admitted that even an old man like the former boss could defeat him with a wooden sword. But so what? Didn't the old man still die to his bullet? In this age, only fools would carry swords when guns existed. "I asked you a question. Where's my brother?" Even so, the bald thug remained cautious. He was alive just now. As for now. The violet-haired girl narrowed her eyes slightly, her right hand slowly gripping the sword's hilt. An overwhelming pressure radiated from her, chilling him to the bone as if a beast were standing before him, ready to pounce. "Stop putting on a show." The bald thug snarled, his gaze fixed on her, brimming with killing intent. "Fine. Keep acting tough. Let's see if you can still act when you're riddled with bullets." Without warning, he squeezed the trigger. Click. Click. But no gunshots rang out, only the sharp hiss of a blade slicing through leather. The bald thug's pupil shrank. Where did she go? A gust of wind brushed past his ear, carrying a sweet fragrance. She was gone. What the hell? His mind reeled. A person can't just vanish into thin air. Then, out of the corner of his eye, he caught a glimpse of violet hair drifting through the air. When his heart dropped. He tried to turn, to lift his arms. But his hands wouldn't move. His vision dropped to his wrists. Two faint red lines had appeared, blood slowly seeping out. He stared, horrified. They weren't just lines. They were clean, precise cuts, made by an impossibly sharp blade. His hand suddenly fell from his arms. Splat. Two severed hands hit the floor and bounced twice before lying still. Everyone in the room was frozen in shock, unable to process what had just happened. Megami, especially, was completely stunned. In her eyes, the violet-haired girl had remained perfectly calm, stepping forward as if she were taking a casual stroll. The next time she blinked, the girl was somehow behind the thug, slowly sheathing her sword. Then those severed hands fell. Was it her? Megami's gaze dropped to the katana in the girl's left hand. There was no other explanation. But this was... Megami's jaw hung open in shock. She didn't know how to describe what she had just witnessed. It felt like reading a typical school romance novel, only for aliens to suddenly invade halfway through. And if the girl had drawn her blade, why hadn't anyone heard it? It was as if she had crossed time and space with that single stroke. Megami never even saw the moment the sword was drawn. It was as if time itself had stopped. After sheathing her blade, the violet-haired girl spun and slammed the scabbard against the thug's neck. Searing pain shot through his arms, and before he could even scream, the impact knocked him unconscious. Done. The violet-haired girl smiled softly, her gentle voice somehow still carrying an untouchable distance. The rest is up to you. Do whatever you like. I won't interfere. Without another glance, she turned and walked away, her katana in hand, her movements as free and graceful as a wandering swordswoman from an old tale. It wasn't until she opened the door and left that Megami finally snapped out of her trance. She glanced at her fellow survivors, all wearing the same expression of disbelief. Gritting her teeth, Megami chased after the girl. The violet-haired girl hadn't gone far. Megami caught up to her near a corner of the building. Panting lightly, Megami gathered her courage and called out, "Excuse me, please wait. I'm Megami Kato, first-year student from Toyosaki Academy." The violet-haired girl slowly turned her head, her long hair flowing with emotion, her deep, calm eyes locking onto Megami without a word. Feeling awkward, Megami touched her own face. Did I say something wrong?" The girl finally offered a faint smile and gently shook her head. "Is there something you need, Kato-san? Can I come with you?" Megami bit her lip. "I wanted to leave on my own, but I just can't find the courage. Being alone. It's too lonely. I'm not afraid of dying, but I don't want to die in some forgotten corner where no one even knows I existed." The violet-haired girl listened quietly, her clear eyes studying Megami carefully. Then, she made a small hand gesture. A distant glimmer of light flickered, and Megami instinctively shielded her eyes. It felt like something dangerous had just been withdrawn from her forehead. She didn't understand what had just happened, but the girl still hadn't spoken. Gathering her resolve, Megami added, "I just want to travel with you, to have someone to talk to along the way." I won't distract you. Whatever happens in the future, I'll accept it. The violet-haired girl blinked, momentarily caught off guard. Then a subtle smile curled at her lips. Come with me. Yes. Megumi nodded eagerly, a bright smile lighting up her face. As she caught up, she asked, Senpai, may I know your name? Bujojima. Bujojima Sako. Chapter 72, I'm not the one at fault. Bang. Thud. Two figures sprinted along the walls of the street, one in front and one behind. Sako Bujojima's katana cut through the air with lightning speed, and every zombie that crossed their path was swiftly dispatched. What surprised Megumi Kato the most was that whenever a stray undead lunged at them from the side, a thunderous gunshot would ring out. The next moment, the zombie's head would explode like a water-filled balloon, splattering blackish yellow brain matter everywhere. Yet Sako seemed completely unfazed, frowning slightly as she gracefully sidestepped the blood and gore. Her pace never slowed, leaving a trail of corpses in her wake. They turned a corner and came face to face with a towering military Humvee. On its roof sat a bespectacled boy with a long-barreled sniper rifle. He looked barely 160 centimeters tall, chubby and round. By the car stood a twin-tailed girl with glasses, gripping a pistol. Her sharp eyes scanned the surroundings cautiously. Several more faces peeked out from the Humvee windows, but none seemed eager to step out. What took you so long? You didn't get hurt, did you? The twin-tailed girl grumbled as she approached, pistol in hand. Only then did Megumi notice the girl's striking figure. Despite being under 160 centimeters, her curves were impossible to hide even under loose clothing. She raised her chin and eyed Sako. Who's she? Sako smiled softly and shook her head, indicating she was fine. Just as she was about to introduce the girl behind her, hurried footsteps echoed from behind, and Tomoyaki came stumbling into view. Bent over, hands braced on his knees, Tomoya panted heavily. It was clear he had sprinted the whole way from the second-floor apartment. Wait for me. He gasped, wiping sweat from his brow. Gasping for breath, he looked toward Megumi and asked, Are you really leaving? Megumi glanced at her classmate and nodded slightly. Then I'll go with you. Tomoya glanced nervously at the cautious stares from the others, then looked into Sako's calm, unreadable eyes. He carefully chose his words. I've been wanting to leave too. I just didn't have the courage to go alone. Since you're going, maybe we could team up. Watch each other's backs. After Megumi had left earlier, Tomoya had been on edge. After all, he was the one who brought the two convicts to the group. Even if he wasn't directly responsible for the deaths of classmates and teachers, he still felt like an accomplice. While the others were still comforting each other after the traumatic event, Tomoya had quietly slipped away, chasing after Megumi. The trail of zombie corpses and the sight of the armored Humvee only strengthened his resolve. He had to cling to someone powerful. With a vehicle like that, even a dozen zombies couldn't flip it over. That was real safety. Tomoya might have been a shut-in, but he wasn't stupid. In fact, he was sharper than most. Why else would he be the only survivor out of a 5-person supply group despite being the weakest in combat? He knew this might be his only shot at survival. But he also understood that the others didn't know him well. He'd need help to get in. So he turned to Megumi. Megumi? He called again. Megumi frowned. To be honest, she was deeply disappointed in Tomoya. She didn't want to travel with him. But this wasn't her decision to make. So she turned and looked to Sako. Sako's expression remained composed, but her smile grew faintly tender. Her next words, however, struck Tomoya like a slap. You're not coming, she said softly. Why not? I'm Megumi's classmate. We're both high school students. Tomoya stepped forward, but instantly noticed the others tense up. The guy on the Humvee even raised his sniper rifle, the dark muzzle now aimed squarely at him. A cold sweat dripped down Tomoya's temple. Their unflinching eyes told him everything: one wrong move and they'd pull the trigger. He suddenly remembered those zombies with their heads completely blown apart. That was definitely this sniper's work. Sako brushed aside her wind-blown bangs and said gently, We can't risk bringing along someone who might open the gates to danger. Survival is instinct, she continued. But some line should never be crossed. Tomoya's heartbeat slowed. His eyes widened as he stumbled back. She knew. She had been there. She saw everything. He thought back to the moment he met those prisoners. He remembered what he had done. Her cold, unwavering gaze sent a chill down his spine. So you remember now, Sako said calmly. She looked away and gripped her katana, then turned to Megumi. Let's go. Okay. Megumi didn't ask questions. She knew now wasn't the time. She cast one last glance at the frozen Tomoya, then decisively followed Sako. Don't go. Please. Tomoya staggered forward, tears welling in his eyes. But no one looked back. Not even Megumi. It wasn't my fault. It wasn't my fault. They made me do it. His mind spiraled. He couldn't go back. If he returned now, they'd tear him apart literally or figuratively. And these people? They were abandoning him. Leaving him in the open, where zombies could appear at any moment. Despair swallowed him whole. This wasn't just my fault. Tomoya lunged forward, eyes bloodshot, his voice hoarse with fury. You were there. You could have saved us. Why didn't you? You're so strong, you could have cut them down in seconds. Why did you just watch? His face twisted with rage. He pointed at Siko, roaring, You're a murderer too. You are an accomplice. Greya. Chapter 73, Be a hero. A familiar and eerie growl suddenly echoed right beside him. Aki Tomoya turned his head instinctively and froze. Just a meter away, a lifeless figure stood with slumped shoulders. Its skin was pale and taut, mouth gaping wide as it let out a guttural, inhuman moan. Drool dripped from its lips, and the muscles on its face twitched uncontrollably. Its dull, gray eyes locked straight onto him. Tomoya couldn't even react before it lunged. The zombie tackled him to the ground, pinning him under its decaying weight. His scream was the very picture of despair, like a wilting flower screaming against a storm. The stench of rot and blood overwhelmed him. He never thought his first time being pinned down by another man would be like this, especially a zombie. Its breath reeked of death, its yellow teeth snapping just inches from his face. His mind went blank. One thought dominated. I'm dead. This is it. I'm going to die. Then. Bang. A thunderous crack split the air. The zombie's body stiffened above him, followed by a blast of black mist and something cold and wet splattering across his face. It reeked of decay and clung to his skin. Tomoya shoved the now limp corpse off him, sat up, and instinctively wiped his face. His hand came back smeared with something thick, dark, and sticky zombie brain matter. Worse than spinach diarrhea. Ugh. He doubled over, clutching his stomach, gagging hard. But just then, a voice rang out nearby. Wait. Don't throw up. That stuff's on your face. If it gets in your mouth, you might end up just like that thing. He froze. The urge to vomit clawed at his throat, but he swallowed it down with a groan, forcing himself to breathe through his nose. His chest heaved as he slowly looked up. On top of a nearby Humvee, a chubby boy peered over a sniper rifle still smoking from the shot. You saw the zombie before I did. Tomoya shouted angrily. Why didn't you shoot sooner? Do you know how close I was to getting bitten? The boy pointed at himself, blinking. Wait, are you yelling at me? He looked wounded. I thought you'd be grateful I saved you. He adjusted his glasses, the sun glinting sharply off the right lens as he raised the rifle again, speaking like a man possessed. This is the Armalite AR-110T, a customized Knight's SR-25 semi-auto sniper rifle. 1,118 mm overall length. 4.88 kilograms. 20-round mag. Fires 7.62 by 51 NATO rounds. I haven't fired it much, but every shot so far has been a clean headshot. Clearly, I was born for this. And from 10 meters away? He smirked. Missing isn't even on the table. Tomoya was still reeling from the spec up when the boy suddenly swung the rifle toward him. And just so we're clear, the boy said coldly, if I didn't shoot right away, it's because I didn't want to. Got a problem with that? Problem? Tomoya's entire body stiffened. What problem? Absolutely no problem. He shook his head so fast he looked like a bobblehead in a typhoon. Siko Bujujima exhaled slowly from the Humvee's passenger seat. Some people just expected others to save them and never thought twice about it. She turned away from Tomoya. Get in. We're moving out. That noise just now will attract more of them. Yes, senpai. Got it, senpai. Megumi Kato nodded and climbed into the Humvee. She glanced at Tomoya one last time, her expression unreadable, before closing the door. With a growl of the engine and a screech of tires, the Humvee shot off like an arrow, vanishing into the distance. Tomoya was left behind. So what if they've got guns? He kicked the side of a parked car hard enough to leave a dent. Grah. Something inside lunged, slamming against the window. A zombie. Tomoya stumbled back, heart in his throat. When he realized the creature was locked inside, his fear morphed into rage. Seriously? Growling at me now? You wanna go? The zombie thrashed against the glass, jaws snapping as it tried to claw its way out. Tomoya sneered. TCH. If that window wasn't in the way, I'd show you. But a glance around reminded him there was no weapon nearby. The zombie's twisted grin pressed against the glass, as if mocking him. Fine. Lucky day for you. Tomoya turned to leave then stopped. In the distance, shambling silhouettes began to appear, drawn by the gunshot and the earlier noise. I can't go back now. He looked around quickly and darted toward an empty side street. 10 meters. 20. He ran like he'd never run before, lungs burning but adrenaline keeping him upright. Then he broke through the alley only to freeze in horror. Across the main road, an ocean of bodies turned in unison. Zombies. Hundreds. Maybe thousands. A tsunami of death. Crap. This is bad. His legs buckled. He fell, scrambled back up. His forehead was soaked with cold sweat. They were coming. The roar of their groans, the pounding of their feet, it was like the world's worst concert, and he was the star act. Zombie tide. He could barely breathe. If they caught him, he'd be eaten alive. AHHH. In that moment, something snapped. Tomoya exploded into motion, running as if death itself were chasing him because it was. He screamed at the top of his lungs. Zombie tide. AHHH. Zombie tide. The school bus might still be usable. He didn't have a car. Couldn't drive anyway. All he had were 2 legs and a voice. But if he warned the others, if he bought them time to escape, maybe he'd be forgiven. He'd messed up before, but now he was going to be a hero. Tomoya's eyes burned with determination. Let's do this. Outrun death itself.